Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Enlightened Investor. I am your host, Dr. Lure, and this is Mr. Fiduciary Mike Mahoney. We are coming to you from Peoria, beautiful Peoria Heights, Illinois. Got some beautiful weather from golf weather, right?
Finally.
Yes, I'm excited. And today we got a great show for you today on dividends, lessons from dividend investing. And really it's about why should I listen to today's show? It's about why is dividend investing irrelevant? It's kind of a tough thing to say. And we want to give you a strategy for if you are saving up for your future or if you're spending down, if you're retired and spending down some of your account. So let's go ahead and start. I think one of the things I want to talk to you, like yesterday, I was walking in the hallway at Bradley University and my colleagues, my associate dean said, "Hey, Lure, is there any great fixed income portfolio strategy?" And I'm like, are you seeking yield? He said, yes. And what about dividends? I'm like, well, what should I say about that, Mike?
Wait for tomorrow.
Wait for tomorrow.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. So that's going to be our show today, folks. Of like, why are dividends? There's so much out there on dividends. Let's talk about that today. So we have 9 lessons we want to get to, and then we have some takeaways at the end. And each one of our lessons under 1 minute each. So here we go. You ready?
Knock it out.
All right. Lesson number 1. Here it is. Something your mom and dad would tell you. There is no free lunch. Right? So why do investors seek dividends when they're in their investing strategies, Mike?
Well, obviously, as you mentioned, they're seeking the yield and the income from it, right?
Yep. And
I guess it provides people with a feeling of certainty that you're getting something.
It's going to come every quarter, right?
Yeah, you're going to get that. Yeah, here it comes. That's your income. You're guaranteed.
Yep, and it makes you feel like you kind of own something, right? You're getting this back.
Right. But if they would look at the mechanics of it, which you're going to explain, I think you would see why there is no free lunch.
There is no free lunch.
It's just a return of your own money.
And that's coming up. That's one of the rules of economics. There is no free lunch, right?
Yeah.
All right. And actually, there's a great article if you're out there, Miller and Magnolani from 1961. I know it's an old one, but it still continues to today. Is that investing in higher yields for like seeking stability yield, it doesn't improve your rates of return in long run, not at all. So lesson number 2, dividends are marketed out there. The media and financial industry has no shortage of strategies of Jim Cramer saying, here's the 10 high
endless
yield. Endless. I mean,
yes. I could have given you hundreds of these because it's crazy how many are out there.
Yes. And there's people out there like stagger your dividends. So like you're getting some diversification in pharma, you're getting diversification in, large cap or, even utilities, right? Like utilities is that. So everything on these dividends, right?
REITs.
And how about real estate? Yeah. REITs, right? And, so there's all kinds of strategies, and they make it sound good, but really in the end, is the performance any better?
Right. It's the driver is not the actual dividend. If you were to take a look at that, it's the actual factor involved there is value stocks. Typically,
yes.
If you have a portfolio of value stocks, they typically have a higher dividend. Your growth stocks don't pay a dividend. Look at Berkshire Hathaway, Amazon, Google.
Yep.
They don't pay a dividend.
No dividend. 60% of companies
don't pay a dividend.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Okay, we'll get into that.
Lesson number 3, we made it so far.
Yes.
1 minute each. Lesson
yes,
number 3, dividends can result in larger tax burdens. There's 2 ways to think about this. As an economist, I think about the double tax issue, where corporations who are getting ready to pay the dividend, they have to earn a profit. They have to report that profit. They get taxed at the corporate tax rate, and then it's passed on to say like, hey, Mike he got a dividend today, and then he gets taxed at either a long-term capital gains or potentially ordinary income. So it's not efficient just from a standpoint of resource use or financial monetary
I will
use.
say most dividends for large companies are qualified dividends, so they do get the long-term capital gains rate. The opposite, though, with REITs, when you're buying REITs, those are ordinary income, so you typically want to make sure you hold those in your IRA or your 401k.
Yes, and we have 2 quick slides there to take a look at. Look at the difference in the rates of the tax rates for tax brackets for income, like on the REITs, on dividends, and then look at the long-term capital gains tax. It's much lower, like at 0, 15, or 20%. Lesson number 4, we're getting there. Dividends are not free either. I guess we kind of mentioned this, but it's not free for also the company as well. And even like, let's say like the day that the company provides you with a dividend, Mike, what happens to their stock?
It goes down by the amount of the dividend.
Yeah.
So basically you're getting some of your money back
Exactly
versus
right.
keeping it in. So it should be irrelevant whether you get a dividend from your stock or whether you make your own dividend, you sell part of the stock to make a dividend. It should be the same.
Should be the same. Exactly. And as Ryan was mentioned pre-show, is that, like 60% of U.S. companies don't have dividends. And really, in many ways, do you want your corporations, your companies to actually provide dividends? Because a lot of companies, like for example, Tesla on their shareholder slide deck says their return of capital is 23%. And if they had a dividend of why
Right.
do that, right?
Sure.
So lesson number 5, dividends are a forced withdrawal. And it doesn't maybe match like the investor's life situation, right?
Right. Especially for the savers, right? I mean, you don't need to have your dividend even coming out for income right now. Maybe they're reinvesting it, but again, I mean, you're getting taxed, right? Versus where if you just let it grow and you wait and defer it you can control it as a long-term capital gain.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Lesson number 6. We've got 9 to go, so we got a few more to go. Dividends chasing decreased diversification, right? And some people they're picking. They choose their investment strategy. They don't really have a plan, but they have a strategy of, let's go after these dividend stocks because I feel safe because every quarter
Sure.
I get something, right?
Well, and the media, everybody, I mean, every media and the managers and everybody, it's a good sell. It's a behavioral issue.
Yep, exactly. And keep that in mind, folks. It's, we are, as investors, we oftentimes are drawn to why we make decisions on fear, on gain, and just
Risk aversion.
and risk aversion, all kinds of stuff, right? So, and that's one of the reasons people do this dividend strategy, chasing recency bias,
right? Yields are low, so let's chase dividends.
Another thing we want to talk to you about is dividends are not guaranteed. Like you might say, maybe you're an older investor and you're on a fixed income and you want to kind of diversify your fixed income, so you will go ahead and you invest in some dividend-paying stocks. Are those dividend-paying stocks, do they always have to pay a dividend, Mike?
No.
They don't. So, one of the things I did in my younger years is
They fluctuate, right?
Or they fluctuate.
On there,
Yeah,
General
yes.
Electric.
Here was a slide for you folks. I invested in General Electric, who was the last remaining company in the original S&P 500. I don't know if you know that, Mike.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so they were the last. A complete turnover in 2018 of all S&P 500 companies. Isn't that amazing? And but anyways, one of the reasons that maybe I was attracted to it back in the a long time ago is that, hey, it does pay a great dividend and has these great companies like healthcare and energy and all kinds of stuff, right? Wind turbines and stuff like that. But look at 2009, their dividend was $1.24. In 2010, it dropped significantly to 82 cents, and then I think you said they almost went under. What year was it?
Either 08 or 09, during the mortgage crisis, they darn near went to zero.
It was went to zero, and so you would have.
And it was a blue chip prior to.
And it was the all-time blue chip, right?
Another story there.
Another story.
Yeah.
Lesson number 8: dividends only provide a psychological benefit. This is a great article from Schrieffen and Stateman explaining investor preference for cash dividends in the Journal of Financial Economics. They found 2 reasons why some investors chase dividend yield. Number 1, those investors recognize they are unable to delay gratification and adopt a cash flow approach to pay for regular expenses. And number 2, the psychological principle of loss aversion causes investors to prefer the feeling of receiving a dividend over losing the share value. Quite a stuff. So we recommend you try to stay systematic in your approach with scientific, evidence-based investing rather than emotion.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have dividends within your portfolio as a component, especially if you take a value approach, which we like to recommend. But the key is you don't let that be the driver of your portfolio. It's just part of your portfolio.
Yep, very good.
And just focus on diversification, right?
And the last lesson is, again, some shareholders overpay for dividends. And this comes from a 2022 article, Reconsidering Returns. And that in fact, the article found that buying dividend-paying stocks when demand is high reduces investors' return by 2 to 5% a year. And this is tough for even like professional advisors that maybe recommend stocks, right? That they get the same fallacy as well. So what is an investor to do? We got those 9 takeaways.
Well, the valuations get high, right?
The valuations, yeah. And some of the takeaways, it kind of depends. So, Mike, I thought maybe you could speak a little bit to this. There's like some people who are saving, they're and then there's those people who are drawing down. So,
right. Well, I mean, the total return approach, and Vanguard actually has a really good paper on this. I think we got a couple slides on that, but it's really nice to take that approach compared to just trying to build a portfolio where you focus strictly on income and yield, because you need to be able like you mentioned, you want to control your cash flows, but you also want to be more diversified, and it long term provides a more stable return, and it provides one that will grow. And if you just focus on income, long term, you're going to have probably a lower expected return.
Yep.
And income.
Because that's not one of the factors that
Not
evidence-based investing.
shown.
Academics does not
Correct.
show that, right? Back to that Mondeliti 1961 study. And then also, for those who are saving, we definitely want to be tax efficient. We want to be low cost, diversified, and we show kind of how to build that kind of portfolio back in episode number 10 in November of 2021.
Right.
And we didn't talk really about like building a portfolio based on dividends.
Well, you think about it like we've been discussing. If you're a saver too, and you focus on dividends, it's tax inefficient because you'd rather get it in capital gains, defer it way down the road. Guarantee as long
there's
as
a mismatch in what you need.
Get the growth,
Yep.
be more diversified. Yeah.
So what do you think, Mike? Some good takeaways there for our investors, our listeners?
I know it's a hard one for people to get, but I mean, there's a lot of information on there that shows that dividends are irrelevant, and people need to educate themselves on this topic. And I hope they found this today somewhat educational, at least to begin that process.
Some words of wisdom from Mike Mahoney, folks.
Advisor.
Yep. Thanks for watching today's show. We'll be back with a new one shortly. And if you want some more information, we're going to put some of this materials out
Send us
on
some
our
questions.
Yeah, we'd love to talk.
Hit that like button. Share it.
This is the Light Investor Team. We're out.